Those things go through anyway. They also watch landscaping right over.
So not right there.
Shaved?
Yep.
What happened?
It's November. You're not supposed to shave when
Don't shave till his wife had a birthday.
Did you remember it?
Oh, yeah. We're helping people around the world communicate.
It's because Facebook reminded you.
Yeah. Because I have forgotten.
By the pound or hashtag.
So am I. It's not pretty.
I was well struck with doing nothing and forgot. So like double down and made it work.
If you are the host,
Oh, that one
press
was well
star
stated.
now. Otherwise, please enter your PIN followed by the pound or hash. If you do not know your PIN, please announce yourself.
Nate,
I've always kind of.
anybody have anybody else on the line?
It's easier to ask for forgiveness.
Stacy's here.
Stacy? I didn't hear back from Andy. I think Chad was going to join by phone.
Okay, I thought Andy said he was going to be here. Maybe I misread that. I mean, email off Sharice just saying.
I think Sharice was going to be on the
It's a
phone.
reminder or whatever.
Wednesday?
It's this one.
Again.
Why do they do these in public?
They do.
I gotta be in Pier on Thursday anyways.
I know.
Hi, Sharice.
Hello.
We'll give it just a couple more minutes, and then we'll get started.
Chad.
Hi, Chad.
Hi, guys. And gals.
Having the big kids table.
Absolutely.
You want this chair?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm cocky enough.
This isn't one. You broke my chair.
I did.
See? I told you it wasn't me, it was the chair.
He broke the chair.
You broke the chair.
It's a pretty intense city council meeting.
No.
Yeah.
Won't even tell Brady where it's at.
Brady's got to do his own. He'd hide for that late pass out.
All right, I think this is probably our crowd for tonight. Why don't we start off with introductions and go from there? Council, if you want to say a few words, or Stacy, if you want to start us off, and then we'll start the discussion with how we want to move forward with this. So, Chad, you want to start first?
Yeah, Chad Riley, Ward 3, City Council.
Sam Bowers, Ward 3, City Council.
Chad Wolf, City Council.
Nate Vanderplat, City Administrator.
Ready to go. D&D small engine. Brian Zerpo, LADC, Security State Bank. John White, LADC, State of South Dakota.
And Jesse Fonkard, Lakita.
Yeah, those of you on the phone, do you want to start off? Sharice, maybe?
Yep, Sharice Eden, Lennox Development Corporation. This is Stacy Duchesne, Mayor of Lennox.
Chad Conaway, member of LADC and Superintendent Lennox School District.
Do we have anyone else on the phone?
Brock said it'll be here in a couple minutes.
Okay. Stacy, would you like to get us started and we can just move the discussion from there? Or Charisse, one of you?
I guess I'd let Therese take it. I'm kind of new to all this game, so I'll let you take it, Therese.
I actually am not certain of what the intention is, so I guess I'm gonna kick it back to Nate or Jesse maybe?
Yeah, I can start it off. So at the last council meeting last week, Monday I think it was, I think it was last week Monday.
Yep.
There's an item on the city council agenda just to discuss an economic development strategy. Making sure that we have identified goals and objectives and tasks and takeaways to continue growing Lennox both physically and economically. And so as a result of that discussion at the city council level, the council expressed a desire for a work session to at least start that discussion. And from there, I guess I kind of envision that this will be probably tasked to a committee to discuss what that strategy would look like. I think from a staff perspective, I'm here to help support that. I think Jesse as well is a phenomenal asset for us to use through this process with his experience in economic development. Well, we pay Jesse's dues, so he gets to be here and help us.
I'm paid to be here.
And so that's how I would start it off. Maybe with a simple discussion point of where have we been and where are we going? Where do we want to go economically as a community?
I guess this is Chad. I'll just kind of throw it out there, to get the ball rolling here. Obviously, this residential development that's happened over the course of the last 24 months or whatever it was is a huge deal for everybody. A lot of work was put in by the LADC and Nate and city staff to get this going. It's a tremendous opportunity to get a developer in that we did. Not a lot of other communities have been that fortunate. I guess in my mind, so what's next? What should we focus on collectively next to try and help each other keep moving things forward and keep this momentum rolling, I guess. Is it commercial? I know you guys have some commercial land and there's land annexed into the south, so just, I guess, try and figure out, open it up for discussion and see what a common vision could be and what we can do to capitalize on things. I know, like everybody on the LADC, you guys all have a full-time job. Got your own life. All this stuff takes time. We have Jesse to lean on a little bit for guidance on some of this. Nate's got some experience with it, and whether he likes it or not,
I'll be here.
he'll carve out some time to help with things. So I guess that's kind of where I was at with it. Just see where you guys were at. I don't want to speak for the other council members, but see where you guys are at and what we can do together to keep this thing rolling.
I'll just throw a little insight as to just some of the things that have been discussed and kind of are on the docket from the Development Corporation. We recently joined a program called Main Street America that is supposed to offer us the resources to tap into to essentially revitalize Main Street. I haven't dug into it too much yet, but they'll have resources for us for grants, revitalization, things like that. So another thing that we've been kind of talking about kicking around is some like residential improvement with some of kind of rehab some of for lack of a better description, Lennox property start moving into the new development and considering that, you know, we just want to make sure that that Lennox stays as desirable as possible. So that's one other thing. We do have a secured contract on the small commercial lots that we have out in the industrial park as well.
So one of the things that, when I came here 2 years ago, we were in the process of working on the comprehensive plan. I think that wrapped up maybe about a year and a half ago. That comprehensive plan looks at your growth, what happens outside of your existing city limits. And so I think that needs to be a part of that discussion in terms of as we look to expand physically, industrially, commercially, there are areas of that 3-mile boundary, 2 miles on the west, 3 miles north, east, and south, that have already been identified as commercial, industrial, residential, so on and so forth. And I think particularly as countryside starts to build out, that commercial aspect of the north end of town is going to become more and more in high demand, I guess I would say. And what strategies are we going to use to support that kind of growth that the demand from the growth on the north side is going to produce for commercial business? Then industrial park. If all property were to sell tomorrow, from a community aspect, we've already annexed additional land down to the south. The land that Dean Cooper owns down there is already annexed. But in terms of projects in the bucket, so to speak, what's that next step for LADC too? Where do they go from here once property sells or is no longer available? Just in terms of long-term outlook. From the city side, what policies do we need to have in place? What programs do we need to have in place to support that growth, whether it's in tax structure or incentives or otherwise?
This is Chad Conley. So I'd be interested in knowing from Jesse, what kind of businesses are we looking to attract in Lennox, or what market should we be going after?
That's a good question. I would ask you, what market do you want to go after? So what you can do is, we call it targeted industries. You target industries you want to attract to Lennox. You take a look at your location in the world, meaning where are you at geographically? What's a good fit for this part of the country? You take a look at more locally. What's happening in your town? Where are you at from a water perspective, or wastewater perspective? Where are you at from a workforce perspective? And how is your infrastructure set up? Do you have ample supply of natural gas? Do you have a supply of electricity? The answer to these questions is pretty much yes, from my understanding. So you're in a pretty good spot. And as far as labor goes, we live in the biggest labor pool in South Dakota. So labor's not an issue any more here than it is elsewhere in the state, right? I mean, labor's good here, more so than across the rest of the state of South Dakota. So, that being said then, you're close to an interstate, you're not right on it, so logistics and transportation is a possibility. You're on the intersection of, two state highways, right? Mm-hmm. So there's plenty of access, so you can say warehousing, distribution is good. I think in South Dakota, we gotta remember where we're from. This is an ag state. Agriculture is a big driver of our economy here, unless you have a trust department in your city, which I don't think there's many trust companies in Lennox or outside of Sioux Falls at this point. Although I think that'd be a really great idea to find a way to get into in the future. It's ridiculous. But value-added ag is kind of where it's at. We see a lot of interest in the state. Their target industries are value-added ag, precision manufacturing, cybersecurity, and there's like one more, but they're they haven't been quite as intentional in their development, I don't think, the last 7 months, because the governor's been so, she's received a lot of national attention. In the past, it's been very much focused. There's been a plan in place back during the Dugar administration. Dairy was a big push, and they're now just seeing more dairy picked up, more dairy processing. That's going to be huge in the next 24 months is dairy processing, which is very wastewater intensive. But most of the folks who are moving to Lennox, like many of the communities around Sioux Falls, are moving here to raise your kids in your school system, right? They're going to raise your kids to be Orioles, they're going to graduate, and they're going to move away. That's a fact. You might keep 60%, 60% might come through and go back out, maybe you'll keep 40% long term. I mean, even nursing home eventually, I think. Nursing home or long-term care. You're a better spot than many communities, honestly.
So we've seen that play out in our demographics.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fairly obvious that that's what happened.
And you're getting younger, too,
Yep.
in Lennox. And so it's a long way to answer your question. Fortunately, you have industrial land, which, again, not many communities have. It's priced to what it's worth at this point because there's not infrastructure there. Economic development, if you don't have the road in it and the utility stubbed out, you're not in first place. In the site selection game, any sort of official site selection process, if you don't have what they need, they throw you out. So when they're selecting sites, they're not looking for the best site. They're looking for the worst sites to throw out. And by process of elimination, they get to the best site at the end of the day. So, based on what you have right now, you're in a good spot. Not a great spot, as far as your industrial land goes. And there are engineering firms that can help do a much more technical analysis. I think for Lennox, a really good fit here is light manufacturing. So I think of more industry like what you see at Sioux Steel and Wilson Trailward. But you would add, you have a great mechanical system. Not many communities have mechanical systems. There's two, the Del Rapids and Lennox outside of Sioux Falls. Harrisburg's building one right now. But water in Harrisburg is the most expensive in the state of South Dakota?
Definitely the region.
Definitely the region?
Yeah.
And that's I'm not saying that to pick on Harrisburg, we're saying there's, nobody's perfect, right? There's no perfect community in the state. There's advantages and disadvantages everywhere. And so one of the things that I suggest your LIDC do in your city, and the city like we're doing today, is figure out what kind of industry you want to attract. What are you good at? What are you not good at? And go from there. And I would definitely recommend looking at the state's targeted industries and matching up with them.
So on the state's key industries, manufacturing, bioscience, value-added ag, livestock development, precision ag, and cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Those are the key industries for the state. And the nice thing about us tracking on that is that the state gets to do some of that work on the front end for us.
Yeah.
They're already trying to attract these businesses.
Does everybody know what value-added ag is? Nope.
Yeah, pretty broad category. You take ag products and you add value to them. so
Whether it's ethanol or
I say
food manufacturing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I say that like because I don't know much about myself. I'm not trying to be,
No.
I mean, it really is. You take corn and you make something else out of it. It's pretty much value added ag. So, or taking dairy products and adding value to them.
Yeah.
Through
Right. All
process.
the byproducts from waste throughout the farming
Yeah.
process.
Yep.
You name it.
Yeah, we're an ag state.
Well, I feel we need to put infrastructure in and be site ready. And I only take that off of the past when Wilson Trailer came in, that thing was site ready. And our development corp operated on $15 grand a year to bring that in. And if they can operate on $15 a year to bring in somebody like Wilson Trailer, then we've got to be able to do something better than what we've been doing. Whether it's as a council, whether it's as a development corp. And, I mean, it's been 12 years. Like, I understand you can't just bring an industry in every 2 years. I get it. But 12 years to me seems to be extreme. And so we're not reaching out to hit our target spots, or we're not aggressive in our marketing. But when you tell us as an expert, and I'm going to preface you as an expert, well, if they're going down the list and this is how they select the site, and we're not site ready, we've got to be site ready.
Absolutely.
And I understand putting money into the ground isn't sexy, but that's the foundational step. And that's where I think we gotta go. I think, Sharice mentions Main Street, I don't think that's the lowest hanging fruit. I think, redoing properties in Lennox, I don't think that's big enough fish. Not for what we've got going. I think we've got to get economic development with heavy industry or commercial. And if it's not the group we're looking at now, and it doesn't have to be, and I've got reservations, and the council has reservations, and the development court might have reservations, all that, fine. Then we need to talk about that, and either poop, or get off the pot, and let's move forward.
For those of you on the phone, Brock has joined us.
So, Brock, what are you proposing as, in terms of, you're saying bottom line is we need to build the infrastructure to make it attractive for, companies to come here, correct?
Yep.
So, in terms of what the Development Corporation needs to do or has not been doing, what are you specifically saying we should have done or we should be currently doing?
We need a road from 17 to Main Street, and we need to extend Main Street south. That's what we have to do.
Okay, so is that something? Is that something the Development Corp does?
In some areas, yes.
So, like what?
Well, in infrastructure development, yes.
Okay.
So like in an industrial park, it wouldn't be uncommon to see a development corporation build out the infrastructure, do the site grading, get everything all set and ready. And then the city would then accept the infrastructure. Not all that dissimilar from what Nielsen's doing up north. Yeah.
Okay.
And the city plays a part in doing that. It's not all on the development court. I'm just saying.
Make sure we keep the discussion away from specific.
Right, but just in terms of infrastructure, like the roads, the water, the sewer, the electrical, the gas, all that stuff that goes into a site, even if you had a shell of a building, someone's going to a business is going to look at that and say, well, I want to know what my overhead is. Well, if I don't have to really put in a lot of money for infrastructure, or I don't have to build a new building. Now, building a shell is a little bit, what kind of a shell do you build? Do you limit people who want to be in that shell? There's a risk to that probably. Typical new businesses, I would think, well, we want to build it the way we want to build it, okay. Well, can we help in that process? At the end of the day, one more thing, at the end, and I'm sorry I'm muffled, I got a mask on. At the end of the day, I think what we've got to focus on are things that just are going to increase our tax base that communities our size have that we don't. And those communities that are in interstate don't count. Because that's just I understand that's apples and oranges. But when you look at if we've got a list of businesses that the state is kind of earmarking towards, oh, this is the place, then let's go find them. Let's go research and find them. And I understand you got full-time jobs and all that, but I think there's got to be a plan in place on how we move and how we go with it.
I'm just going to interject with a couple other things that we've had on our agenda for some time that we've discussed. One of those is site certification and being, Jesse, what do you call that? Certified ready study.
Yep.
So that has been on our docket of conversation, as well as potentially offering either the option to build out some sort of skeleton structure or a build-to-suit type of situation. So those are topics that we haven't had on our plate that are ongoing conversation pieces.
Don't you have a site on the certified site list already?
No.
On the Governor's Office of Economic Development?
We might have a site listed as available, but it's not a certified ready site.
There's a site I just was looking at it the other day.
Yeah.
There's a site on there that's in town.
Jesse, maybe you can explain the difference between those two things.
So the Governor's Office of Economic Development has a program called the Certified Ready Site Program, which is a process that they've developed that helps industry leaders in the site selection process determine which sites are ready to go and which are not. Meaning, are certain areas checked off the boxes that would help that process move along quicker. And those originated, I believe the prime was that certified sites would get priority during submissions to prospects, but we live in the day of the internet, so that's not quite as important as it used to be. I think you had a certified already site for a number of years, and I believe it was perhaps maybe one of your prospects are now, or your tenants are now. But the thing with the certified ready site programs, the certification only lasts, I think it's 5 years or less. You have to recertify. What's going to change in a site in 5 years from the soil samples to the utilities? Things are typically just going to get better from a utility perspective. And so the state's process is not necessarily always feasible from a financial perspective for many development corporations. And so that's why it's kind of fallen out of favor, from my understanding, recently. But, for example, one of the questions in the application is, does the site have utilities and road access? If the answer is not yes, then it's hard for your site to be certified.
So you're the expert. What would you recommend we focus on? What would be the first thing that you would do if you ran the Lennox element?
Yeah, I miss local economic development, and so I really appreciate you giving me a chance to talk, because I like to talk. I love the sound of my own voice. I'm just kidding. I'm a believer in focusing in the big picture. And the big picture is, how do you improve your community, right? It takes not just one thing, but many different things. I'll use my experience in Hartford to give you perspective. We looked at our weaknesses in Hartford, which was our downtime was weak, looked like crap. How do we make our weakness better? So we took land that was vacant, we gave it away and put a brewery on. Why a brewery? It brought people together, because our weakness was that we're a bedroom community, we're a big community into Sioux Falls. And so you couldn't have that sense of community and identity building. So we found ways to strengthen our weaknesses. In Lennox, your commercial business district is your downtown. That's where many of your businesses are. You don't want that to become a weakness. You want to make sure that you can keep that strong, or at least on an upward trajectory. Main streets are favorable for millennials who like the small, locally owned businesses. But Main Street doesn't employ more than 4 or 5 people a piece in those jobs. And those jobs are not good jobs anymore that they used to be. Meaning, many of those jobs don't pay more than 30 or 40 grand a year, unless you're a business owner. So you want a strong small business base, with opportunities for both high-skilled labor, medium-skilled labor, low-skilled labor. But you also have to think about the future. And so, your Main Street, you can't grow anymore, but it can get worse, right? It can also get better. And so, I mean to say is that you want to have a plan in place of what do you want the community to look like? Do you want Main Street to get worse, or do you want it to get better? And how are you going to do it? How is it going to make money for you? Think of it as a business sense too, where you reinvest money back into a certain area. Is it going to have a return in the form of jobs, property tax revenue, sales tax revenue, and then earned media? And Hartford is always, for me, it was about earned media. We saw our president in 2016 use media to get elected. And I thought, well, we can do the same thing in Hartford. You find small stories, and let them talk about it for you, which gets you a free nice boost that would otherwise cost you 4 or 5 grand. So, this is a long way of saying you need to have a plan in place. The plan needs to be completed by stakeholders and approved by all your stakeholders. And the plan then needs to be adhered to and executed on. What I recommend for Lennox is doing some sort of master plan approach that gets your OADC and your city involved. I would have somebody do it for you, so it's done officially. Some people call it strategic planning, some people call it master planning. Either way, you need a plan. Businesses don't succeed because they're not over planning. They fail because they're not planning at all, right? I mean, you need to have a plan if you want to succeed, as I'm trying to say.
Are you talking more like a SWAT plan, Jesse?
A SWAT would be part of that.
Yeah, it'd be a part of a larger.
It fits into a larger plan. So, I mean, what I recommend here is community development. So, you have a chamber of commerce, how is your economic development group, you have service clubs, is your library strong, your community services strong, looking at all those areas, assessing them, maybe ranking them, finding ways to improve each. On the city side, it's your utilities, how's your water, how's your wastewater, your utility providers, so the investing in your community. here in Lennox, I would also recommend looking at industrial development more. If this LEDC park fills up, you're gonna need to find your next spot. Well, what are your assets here? You have state highways, you have water, you have sewer. But what do you have that most folks don't have in South Dakota, other than natural gas? Rail. You have rail in your town, and it's not being utilized. That drives me crazy. Every time I come to Lennox, I want to say, there's rail here. I asked Nate about the storage units that are along the rail. Is there any way we could find a way to repurpose that? That's not quite what's going to happen. You need to find a way to get on rail. You want to attract bigger tenants, and I think this is a BNSF rail that comes through Lennox. That sees probably pretty good service, doesn't it?
2 a day.
2 a day? Yeah. So that's pretty good. I mean, Foundation Park in Sioux Falls, for example, receives 2 a week, maybe 3 a week.
Right.
So again, it's looking at your strengths, where you want to be, having a plan in place, and making sure you're finding ways to meet all the aspects of your circle or your community, so that you don't get too weak or too strong in a certain area, unless you want to be. Like in Humboldt, for example, it's pizza. They did the best pizza in Minnehaha County, if you ask me. If you have a chance to check it out, it's Main Street City Bar. That's on public record, and I will say that I think it's the best pizza in Minnehaha County. I don't care to challenge it. It's a long answer to your question, but this stuff takes years. If you don't have a plan in place, nothing's going to get done.
But I'm not saying that what Shoes mentioned, the Main Street thing, is there things to try to revitalize Main Street? Absolutely. I just don't think it should be the top priority, and I think it should be an extension of what we're trying to do. If you go into, and I travel around the state a lot, and I get into small towns.
Yeah.
Okay? And Main Streets are dying or are close to dying, and the buildings are either empty or there's a boutique shop in there. Those are the options. Right? You got a bank, 3 bars, a post office, and then 4 boutiques and 5 empties. And the boutiques aren't going to necessarily, are they kind of cool to have around, I suppose, but it's not really a revenue generator, so to speak. You go to Beersford, there's like 5 of them. Yes, it's crazy. And the question would be like, what kind of business goes onto a small town Main Street, you know, in regards to tackling that issue? I don't know what that is. You know, I don't.
Well, Jesse, that's the whole idea of a master plan, obviously. I mean, everybody's got an idea of what they want to do. It's a matter of, like you said, you know, getting somebody who's a professional and getting the big picture and then prioritizing things and saying, okay, for community like Lennox, in terms of its history, in terms of its demographics, whatever, what makes the most sense, and also in terms of revenue, what makes the most sense to pursue first. Maybe, doing revitalizing downtown makes some sense, but it's probably maybe not on the highest thing on the list.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what does that fall under? So I'll give you an example in Hartford. I don't like to lose. I like to win. Okay, I like to be the best. I don't like not having a seat at the table. And so in Hartford, we didn't have our tools in place. And so back in November of 2019, we hired a firm to come in and do a feasibility study on what would be a $2 million capital campaign over 5 years. Call it Envision Hartford. And so we created a plan. We had our board approve it, and then we tested it with 60 investors, saying, if we executed this plan, would you be willing to donate money towards that plan? I'm not saying you should do this. I'm just giving you an example of what we did. And so we tested that campaign, and we got a yes. So we kicked it off in January, and then I left in March. The pandemic hit in March. They got to $1.9 million during a pandemic out of a $2 million test. And the city committed 40% of that. Because it really is a public-private partnership. Now, there's a return on that. It's an investment. Because that money is going to go towards industrial development. So there's 3 categories, and that's why I'm sharing this. It is, I wrote the plan, I should remember. It is marketing and education is 1. It is community development is 2. The third one was industrial development. Because in theory, industrial development, with an initial investment, there can be a return over time. If there's no margin, there's no mission, it's the saying I heard in Sioux Falls. I like that. So you take the money from that, come into your industrial park, you can sell land, have a small margin of profit, take that, and then keep reinvesting it in your next industrial park, the next phase 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. Right? Community development, the return is going to be on people and sales tax dollars. So was reinvesting into Main Street so that we could get more sales tax dollars, and more importantly, more third-party sales tax dollars, which went towards economic development. So we had to find a way to fund our programs more long-term. And the first one is marketing. we're doing all these cool things, how do we tell the world? You need a good website, you need a good digital plan, you need to be able to go to trade shows. If you want to target your industries, come to your industrial park. Well, this is pre-COVID, so trade shows aren't going to be happening for quite a while. And then they don't have quite the same importance. But if you don't have a marketing campaign and a line of focus, then how can you tell the world what you're working on? So the plan doesn't matter if you don't have a way to execute the plan and tell the world that you have a plan that you're working towards and delivering on. At the end of the day, though, it's what do your people want? We knew that our people in Hartford wanted growth. We know they're willing to put their money where their mouths are to make that happen. And that we have the right people in place to help execute on those visions and goals. And so we spent, I think, 20 grand on a feasibility study. I mean, you probably spend, probably higher, between 5 and 20 grand on something. But a good plan, if done the right way, the return on that is going to be huge.
If you commit to executing the plan.
Yeah. And so I like to think of the cities a lot. My wife grew up in Chaska, and so we spent a lot of time going to the southwest suburbs. And I think, okay, in 50 years, what's Lennox going to look like? What's Hartford going to look like? What's Brandon going to look like? What's this whole Sioux Falls metro going to look like in 50 years, in 40 years, in 30, 20, 10, 5, 2 years? What are we doing to start working towards those goals to make sure that your town is the best town it can be in 50 years? So when your grandkids are graduating as Orioles, they look back and say, damn good childhood, and an awesome school district opportunity, and I'm proud to be from Lennox. So in theory, that's also a pipeline. Think of it as a sales strategy. If you make sure you have good kids that are graduating high school and getting good jobs, that have a good experience here, they might want to come back here and move here. But if you don't enable them and support them, then they're going to go somewhere else. You've lost your easiest people to come back home, or your easiest sale is your kids and grandkids. Because again, I think of it as a business, from a sales side. We're all in sales. We're all selling something. In this case, we're selling Lennox, which is a great product to sell.
It sounds like we need to come up with a plan, whether it's a strategic or a master plan, or whatever we want to call it. Get together and see what that looks like, or start scratching it out anyway. I guess my biggest thing is, one of the points you brought up is, industrial. What happens if some company comes in and takes up all of our industrial space? Where do we go from there? I know it's been talked about already, but those are the things we need to concentrate on. When that land is gone, what are we going to do? Where do we go? We go south to Cooper's land, or what do we do? We got to have that in the plan.
Would it make sense to kind of, maybe break out a small group from the council and a small group from the LADC, just to kind of keep this rolling? It doesn't necessarily need to be everybody all the time, but just a few people from each group that, can make the commitment to keeping this rolling. Because we do need, I truly believe we need to capitalize on this opportunity we have up north here. We've got a lot of momentum, and I don't think anybody would disagree that it would be a shame not to figure out, have something in place to keep this going relatively soon.
You talk about earned media. There are two things that have really gotten Lennox in the news in the past year. 3. State football, countryside, and the pool. We didn't pay for any advertising for the pool last year. We were on the news 7, 8 times a day. Throughout the entire summer. And that was all free advertising. And 90% of it came from Jody's initial story.
Which is a Lakita sponsored post.
Yes, it is. So I think it would make sense, whether it's the Economic Development and Finance Committee, or whether it's an ad hoc committee and, you know, the same number of representatives from, the LADC. But I wonder if we don't need to broaden our scope here a little bit. You know, what about commercial club? What about, our larger employers? We could go as wide and broad or as slim down as we really want. More input is generally not a bad idea. Now whether people want to give the input or not, that's their decision.
I think you do that, you focus on those three areas of, marketing, education, and then community and industrial.
How does the group feel about taking steps to search for and hire an outside group to get this moving?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there needs to be kind of essential focus of somebody who, you know, keeps it moving forward, keeps it organized, because, you know, as you said, I mean, we all have, you know, full-time jobs for the most part, and, you know, want the best for this community, but it's time consuming. You know, and if there's somebody that does this full-time or part-time or does it professionally and just kind of keeps, you know, all the, you know, cat's headed in the right direction, I think that, to me, is the best way to do something like this.
I think Jesse and I could quite easily come up with a list of prospective firms, local and non-local. I can keep this going. I think we've both worked with plenty of them throughout our careers, and that's a pretty easy step. I think the decision by this group needs to be who do we pull together, and from where, as the stakeholders in this process. Obviously, LADC and city are important aspects of that, but what groups are we missing, or what groups should we have involved beyond that?
I don't think it would have a representative of the commercial club, as you guys mentioned. I'm trying to just thinking out loud here. I'm not sure what other. I mean, this, you know, the school's a big part of this, right? It's a big part of the community. And Chad, we've got some representation from their leadership there, so I think that kind of takes care of itself. I don't know. You guys have any other thoughts? What?
Chad, would you suggest having anybody from your board, or no?
I don't know that it'd be necessary right now. I would tell you that, you know, I got an LADC because of my interest in seeing what growth might happen, and I wanted to plan to see what the school needed to do. Our proximity to Sioux Falls drives a lot of this. I certainly would serve on a committee, and I have many more questions after listening to the conversation happening. I'm willing to be a part of it. I think that, you know, the residential piece up north was very important to me because, I was making plans on a much bigger scope. I have district boundaries that extend all the way to 12th Street to Sioux Falls and south past 18. And, I kind of needed to know for the school where things were going. And, that's, you know, the project up north is why we built the, elementary addition. And, I assume that most of the people that are going to be moving into that housing right now are folks who have jobs. Outside of some industries, maybe the school being one of them, outside of that, most of the folks I think have their jobs in Sioux Falls.
Yeah.
And, I see Lennox as largely a bedroom community. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't have some of our own industry and provide a tax base for the city outside of residential housing.
Absolutely.
But that is one of the challenges, is what type of industry do you bring? Do you care if those folks have the income to live in Lennox, or are you okay with them leaving Lennox? I think when we were talking about the TIF and the need for housing for our teachers, I have quite a few teachers that live in Sioux Falls, some live in town. Wilson Trailer, I think a lot of people are coming in to work at Wilson Trailer. That's not good or bad, I'm just saying that as far as what type of industry, what type of jobs, what kind of paying jobs do we want to bring here? We keep building housing, the school's gonna continue to grow, I'll be adding some jobs, down the road, I'm sure. But, anyhow, I'm willing to be a part of that conversation, I think that the school needs to be a part of that conversation. But there's a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of good things brought up tonight, and I agree, we need a purpose and need some goals ahead of us. How to get there, I don't think any of us really know what we want yet, that's kind of what I got out of this meeting. We all know we need to be somewhere, but I don't think we know where that needs to be.
I think any.
Sorry, I would have.
No, I think you're right on the mark. I think that's part of why this process is necessary. Because it doesn't feel as though there's any consensus for, where we're supposed to be going here and who we're supposed to be focusing on and what jobs and what wages and what industries or so on and so forth. This process is intended to parse that out and put all the stakeholders on the same page, working towards a shared vision for the community. Easier said than done.
Well, I was just say, I think Chad brings up a good point as far as what is the identity of Lennox. I mean, it's obviously changing, but if it's going to be primarily a veteran community, for people maybe working Sioux Falls, I mean, there's some of that going on already. But I mean, to that point, if that's kind of the future, should our primary focus be to keep people here? When you're thinking, no, people are going to leave anyway, it's like, I don't know, I'm just throwing the question out there. I think it's a legitimate, question.
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
Because you have control over your future.
Right.
What do you want your future to be?
Yeah.
So it's really a question of whether we're okay with that or not okay with that.
Right.
As a community.
Yeah.
Right now we have essentially an equal wash every day with employees traveling in and employees leaving. It's about 800 either way. Maybe we're all okay with that. Maybe we wish for more of those employees to be living here and working here. There are some communities people live in to live in. There are some live in to work in. It's all across the board. Where are our current strengths in that regard? And what as a community do we want to be for people who live, work, and play here?
If we're gonna be a better community, then the tax base is gonna have to be expected to be high to make up for lack of industry and lack of commercial sales tax.
Yep. That's one thing that other communities thrive on that we do not.
Right.
We do not thrive on sales tax. This is the first year in a long time that we're going to significantly outpace inflation for sales tax. And honestly, the only reason is people were staying home and not shopping in Sioux Falls for 3 or 4 months.
And Jesse Fokker came in with Lakiva.
That's
There's definitely a correlation.
There's a correlation.
Just put it out there.
Outside of that, we just don't get a way to generate sales tax. Part of that is with the availability of everything you could want in Sioux Falls. Part of that is with the restraints of our municipal boundaries. We do have some businesses that are just east of the highway that aren't city limits, and we don't collect any sales tax on any of that. That makes a big difference to what you're doing as a community.
I don't think being a veteran.
What do you think about that, Dean?
Oh, go ahead.
Teach School District has a bad experience with that on the other side, they have that large development out there on the interstate, and all those taxes go to Harrisburg School District.
Yep.
But it's, I believe a lot of it is actually a municipality fee in which, the tax structure exists.
Yep.
For me as a school district, being 192 square miles, we've seen a lot of consistent growth, happen throughout our district. And, our revenues are drawn differently than the city, but I'm drawing on a much larger, tax base. For me, the school, we want to keep seeing, consistent, manageable growth, and, that requires housing to go up. Some of that was too big, too quick. It's kind of what we decided on some land up north in Sioux Falls. But, for the city, and for your sake of tax base, I don't know if that matters to you, whether those jobs keep people here or not.
Yeah.
As much as maybe the product that they sell and how much revenue it generates for the city. Because a good tax base commercial-wise also probably helps keep your residential taxes down too.
It absolutely does. When you look at a facility like Wilson Trailer, between city, county, and schools, probably $150,000 a year in property taxes. You can't make that up in 10 years on residential development.
And so, I think to keep taxes affordable and to keep housing attractive to move to Lennox, I mean, nobody wants to come to Lennox and build a nice new home if the taxes are going to be way out of whack compared to staying in Sioux Falls or going to T or Harrisburg. I don't know how those things line up there from that standpoint from a municipality, but T, for example, things look attractive T from the city side, but when you get into the school side and the fact that they keep an ongoing bond of about $4 per thousand, it starts getting pretty expensive for them. So I think this is all good conversation. That the city definitely needs a commercial tax base. What those businesses should be, I really don't know. But I agree something needs to happen, and I guess I just reiterate that I'm willing to be a part of that conversation and brainstorm.
So how do we want to structure it?
I think, Nathan, if you have different ideas, please feel free to interject. Maybe Nathan and I bring you two or three different proposals for plans. Maybe two that are the same, one that is a little bit different, for you guys to look at and see how you consider it. And having it, since it's a joint process between the city of Lennox and LADC, and I'd recommend the school district as well. Maybe they'll want to pay for it too. Yeah, I'm smiling.
Yeah,
Big chance out.
Broad tax base.
Yeah, huge tax base. 108 square miles than I just used, right? No, but also,
Governor gave him a lot more leeway on the CARES Act.
Yeah,
Than we did on.
But I know of 3 different companies, organizations that are specific to this type of process, and they have a very great. They all have great programs that help communities go through the soul searching process. So what do you want to be? How are you going to go after it? And they'll help you make sure that you get the right people at the table to have those conversations. I'm sure we're thinking of at least one that's the same, and then a couple others too.
Sure.
That'd be my recommendation. I think it's always good to get more than one proposal, more than one quote.
Sounds good. Would you like to bring that back to the whole group, or do we want to bring that back to a committee of members?
What do you guys prefer from the LADC? How do you prefer? Or do you have a preference?
I don't know. I think we bring it back to the whole group, and then from there maybe pick out some guys that want to move forward as a community.
Lately, I mean, I've seen a lot of cities hiring an industrial person.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the one deal, or what's the deal there? I mean, there's 3 or 4 just lately that have hired.
No, and I completely brought that up, because one of the things that, again, I believe in the key, that's how do we find a way to work our mission in a changing world. One of the things that we're working on right now is putting together a plan for hiring people and then contracting them back out to communities. With the thought that we can hire somebody, pay them a more competitive salary, give them more training experience than say one municipality could do. And so I'm putting together a plan for that maybe you might want to consider, where we would provide maybe 15 to 25 hours a week of economic development support. That could then be your administrator of your LADC, advise your city on economic development strategy, work with me directly on prospecting, site development, all that stuff. That would help keep this ball rolling. Otherwise, because I'm your city administrator or LADC president, and people get burned out real quick when they're volunteers too. And so, if you want to be competitive, see what everybody else is doing, and then try to do it better. And this would be my strategy to help you. So it's something worth looking into, I would think.
So I guess what I would suggest tonight is that Jesse and I go some marching orders to find some organizations that would be well suited to pull this off. Present those at, you might be able to make next LADC meeting, but it might be 5 minutes instead. Present at LADC, present at City Council, or simply at City Council and have LADC members there for that discussion. And go from there.
Sounds good. Fine with it.
Folks on the phone, anything? Am I missing anything? Are we hitting the mark?
I guess I'm in agreement. I think that's a really great place to start to get a plan together of how we want to move forward. I support that as well.
Okay.
Doesn't matter what Chad thinks.
I said my piece.
What I heard Chad say earlier is that he wishes the city would expand their boundaries to match the school district.
Well, Nate, if you were in that same boat, I don't think we would be having to have this conversation.
I agree. We would not. No, the levy for the school district and the city are actually fairly similar. But we've only got a mile and a half squared to draw from, so.
We're only 190 short.
We're just about there. All right, if there's nothing further, we'll take it from there and plan on coming back within the next month, let's say. Follow-up time frame and getting some ideas out there and a recommendation.
Sounds good.
All right. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Where's our gavel?
Chad.
There you go.
There you go. Good job.
Officially done.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.